What is up, you guys? It's Shabbat, so Shabbat Shalom. I hope you are having a fulfilling and peaceful day. I have been feeling very heavy energy today. What I would call just like a withered soul. And I'll talk about this in the reading because that's kind of what the reading is addressing for us. I don't know if you feel this way in your life, like you've hit a wall, like you're wondering, you feel like your work is thankless. And even though you're patient and diligent, it's like things aren't, moving. And so it's hard not to become emotional and discouraged and become reactive in that spiritual fatigue and weariness. But I think that sometimes just acknowledging that feeling instead of trying to bury it down, put on a brave face, rigidly put yourself into this mindset that isn't really honest. Like, I don't know, like I can't none of us can keep that up all the time. And I think that 2025 has been very challenging in that regard. It's been really hard to not feel the weight of the world, but also to feel our own personal turmoil as well. And there's been so many planetary things going on that have been illuminating that inner turmoil and having us rethink our relationships, our life, the structures of our life, our security, our routines, and reevaluating. And so what I've been trying to do on this channel is get feedback from you guys about what kind of content you need and what it is that you are responding to, what's nurturing you about this. I'm trying to niche in enough to reach an engaged audience. And so I have been given this gift of intuition and prophecy. I'm an empath, and I'm trying to use these gifts to help us proactively do this work together. And for me to see pictures and symbols and read people's like channeling and their guidance through these cards and the way that they write and their symbolism, to me it brings so much, like just everything just floods forward and I see so much and it turns all the wheels, it gets all the wheels going. Then I hear all these other voices about demonizing tarot, which I totally understand because so many tarot readers are just out there. You don't know what kind of consciousness they have. You don't know what kind of spiritual beliefs that they have or what they're opening themselves up to. And so I have a hard time reaching an audience because the people who like tarot aren't necessarily willing to do the inner reflection. They just want to be told what's going to happen, who's interested in them romantically, where's their money going to come in, what's happening with their success. And then the people who want spiritual growth sometimes are turned off by the cards. So I'm like in this weird position where we live in this world where if you're making content online, the algorithm is making all the decisions and pushing you in front of people based on its conclusions about what the content is and who will like it. And so I don't know if I've ever been able to find my audience, to find my people. And so I'm trying to get feedback about what it is that the people who are actually here consistently are connecting with. I've had some people give me some answers, but they've been pretty general. Like, everyone likes to listen to a pretty girl talk, and it's comforting, and it gives me a positive message. Some people like the Bible references and things, but I don't know if there's topics that you need help with, or particular struggles. I, in my mind, thought I was going out into the world trying to be there for people who have been traumatized or alienated by the church. And I wanted to give them a bridge back to their own relationship with God through spirituality. But I'm having a hard time getting these messages out. And so I'm feeling like the futility of my efforts, and I am feeling the weight of having so much time put into this and feeling like the messages aren't getting anywhere. And so I appreciate anybody who's watching these videos, anyone who's commenting on them, anyone who's liking them. I appreciate that so much. So I'm interested in your feedback about this, so it guides me and leads me to try to help you guys or make content that you feel engaged with. I considered today trying to shift my direction and maybe not using the cards, but it just feels, I don't know if that feels right for me either. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think about things. I feel like we're doing something here with intention with the structure of these readings. It's like we're trying to stay engaged with our soul throughout the week and stay the course and attempt to work on things and find meaning and purpose through our days. But if it's not getting anywhere, if it's not helping anyone, then I don't want to keep going down a path that's not in service to me or anyone else. So I don't know. Let me know if there are things that you need specific help with, if there's topics that you want me to just do vlog videos on, and whatnot. But I'm going to pause here and let you guys listen to the blog that I wrote today about this spread, and then we'll come back and we will go through the reading. I want to read from the booklet, The Oracle of the Radiant Sun, because there are so many on the nail, hit the nail on the head sentences that come out in these cards that I feel are particularly poignant. So I'm going to pause, cutting the audio in, and then we'll be right back. Sometimes it feels like the work we do is thankless and goes unnoticed and unseen, rendering our time and efforts seemingly meaningless. It feels like we are asked for endless patience and diligence, pouring into vessels that simply will not and cannot open. And in the midst of it, we're jeered at, receiving little in return for our efforts, least of all understanding or general support. We ask ourselves, is any of this worth it? Am I pouring my heart and soul down the drain? We are restless and anxious for results, but it is in this craving for a result that is draining our energy. We have to put blinders on and stay focused on the path, taking one step at a time. We cannot let our emotions get the better of us. We have to have mastery over our feelings and choose with our sovereignty, determination to persevere. Even when God calls you in a direction, you will be met with adversity. In fact, it's a guarantee. It's the opponent that gives to you easily. We have to choose to do our good works for God alone and maintain our joy and levity in the process. God is an eternal, unwavering, unrelenting, unconditional outpouring of love, light, creation, and giving. It is up to the vessel to refine itself to receive. God is not affected. God is cause. When we are constantly in effect consciousness, we lose affinity with the Creator, and we cut ourselves off from receiving the light of blessings and fulfillment. When we master our thoughts, our feelings, our self-control, we become the cause as we transcend our affected wishy-washy nature. When we become the cause, we bind ourselves to the light as long as we maintain affinity with God. It is in this state that we open the vessel and find ourselves in flow and are open to receiving the light of blessings and fulfillment. Meditation is a practice of surrender and submission that primes our vessel to receive. This stillness and silence and our connection to our breath connects us to the infinite expansion inside of us, which allows us to receive wisdom and guidance from the Holy Spirit. We don't need a church, an intermediary, or a guided audio for this. All we need is the discipline to sit still in silence with our eyes closed and breathe. Okay, so we have the moon in Capricorn, which is practicality. We have Mercury in Aries, which is restlessness. We have Venus in Pisces, which is submission. Underneath practicality, we have 10 of Wands. Underneath restlessness, we have 2 of Pentacles. And underneath submission, we have King of Cups. All right, so the practicality card. I got this vision of, when you see those horse-drawn carriages in cities. We used to have them around Nashville a lot when we had a little bit of a quieter downtown. And what I always noticed about the horses were that they were given these blinders, these devices that when I was little, I was like, are the horses blind? Why do they have that on their eyes? But basically the blinders go on the horse so they're not spooked by all the traffic and distracted by all of the noise and the chaos going on around them. They're focused on taking their one step in front of another and going straight down the path so that they don't get spooked, get frightened, get distracted, get aggravated. They just stay focused on the path ahead. Now that is the picture that I kept getting, because with the practicality card, we have the 10 of Wands. And the 10 of Wands is putting a lot of effort into something that may feel like it's not giving anything in return. It usually depicts someone in tattered clothing, and they're carrying a big bundle that's hard to manage. And so that is kind of the feeling right now that is taking over. It's and I'm feeling this too, this weariness of feeling like your efforts aren't amounting to anything. They're not making a difference, and you're not getting anything in return. So it's you're just squandering your life force and your years away. But is that the truth, or is that our exhaustion and emotional state getting the better of us? Because we have the King of Cups here in the reading, and the King of Cups has learned to master his thoughts and emotions so that he is not in a state of emotional reactivity. He may seem stoic, and he may not be the warmest, most gushy person, but he is steadfast and earnest and sincere. And so he is that king that can keep showing up. This represents our self-mastery over the emotional realm. We don't ignore our feelings, but we're also not completely controlled and driven by them either. You know, how many times does your feelings for, say, the wrong person have you weak and going back again and again and again and making the wrong, like not having proper judgment or wisdom because your feelings are steering you in the wrong direction? So it's like there's this nuance and discernment that when we listen to statements like follow your heart and listen to your feelings, it's like they get generalized, and then we end up trusting feelings that can be deceptive, right? If I trusted my feelings from this year, I would have just quit and thrown in the towel and given up. But I know that I have a calling, and I don't want to squander the work that I've put into this channel. And so it doesn't mean that I can't tweak my process or change direction. But at the same time, the way that we've kind of structured the weeks, it feels good. It feels productive. It feels like it keeps us moving forward. So again, I'm not the kind of person that's open to the criticism of trolls. I recognize that right away. But if somebody gives me thoughtful insight as to what they need help with, or if these are helping, like if this helps, then, you know, I want to be able to be open to that constructive criticism and that insight. So the emotional reactivity basically puts us in what's called effect consciousness. And the creator is the cause, right? Imagine the sun, like up in the sky, the sun. The sun emanates eternally light. It's unwavering, it's unfluctuating. I mean, yes, there are solar flares, but for the sake of what we're talking about, the sun doesn't turn on and off. And the sun isn't like the moon where it waxes and wanes. The sun is full blast all day, all the time. So too is the light of the creator. The creator is an eternal and unfluctuating and unconditional flow of love and light and creation and beingness and upliftment and wisdom and all good things. That is the cause of reality because it is so stable, because it is so unwavering. Now, when we are in that state, when we are unshaken and unchangeable, that is when we're in that flow, that cosmic flow where we feel unstoppable, where everything is just, we're sinking every dunk, you know, the 3-point shot, right? When we get affected by everything and either we get overly excited and jump in too quick, or we feel that state of FOMO, I'm missing out, or I'm sad today, I give up, or I didn't have my way, so I'm going to throw a fit, you know, or I'm feeling like super aroused and crushy on someone, so I'm dropping everything and, you know, all my inner work and I'm, you know, chasing after them, whatever it is, that's being in an effect consciousness, being affected by everything. And so it's like the writer, I never remember whether his name is Stephen Pressfield or Stephen Prescott, but he wrote a book called The War of Art. And then he also wrote a book called Going Pro. And he talks about this concept of the amateur being someone who writes or creates when they're inspired. But the pro is the person that shows up unwaveringly, no matter what mood they're in, whether they're inspired or not, no matter rain, hell, snow, sunshine, they sit down for their disciplined block of time and show up for their craft. So it's the same, being like the creator, we have to be professional self-controllers. That is the only way to be in that cosmic sovereignty of self. Otherwise, we're affected by everything going on in the world all the time. And when we are emotionally and mentally and vibrationally affected, it affects our circumstances, because as a man thinketh, so is he, right? So part of the fruits of the Spirit, the one that always stood out to me, was self-control. And if you don't have self-control, then you can't maintain any of the other virtues. So most of our work is just finding that way to know yourself well enough to show up for your calling, to show up for your purpose, to show up as your higher self, regardless of whether you feel like it or not. And it doesn't mean that we're never going to have bad days. We do have bad days, but we find ways to cultivate resilience, and we have practices and tools in our tool belt to bring us out of those hard days, right? Remember when the horse was being taken down into the pit of despair in the Never-Ending Story, and the boy, Atreyu, was trying to pull him out of that pit. And we have to find ways to cultivate our consciousness for those days where we're being pulled down into the pit. We have to be able to pull ourselves out. And sometimes that means cooking and listening to my Kabbalah classes, right? Sometimes it is going on a walk, going on a run. And some days I do all those things and I still feel flat. But I have a good night's sleep, and the next day I feel better. So you have to do those things, and you have to have them in your tool belt, knowing that they are there for you on days when you just feel like the world is on your shoulders. Today, in my shorts, I have been doing a series. Instead of pulling a card for the day, I've been mixing things up, and I've been doing a series teaching what each psalm is used for. The psalms are very powerful prayers. They are beautiful songs and poems, and they're very comforting and they're very instructive, but they're also very powerful prayer tools for spiritual warfare. And so far we've covered protection from evil occurrences. We've covered the prayer to pray for protection against poverty. I shared the psalm to pray for good fortune, like to put yourself in a state of blessing. And then today, it was Psalm 15 is the prayer you pray for depression and mental illness and insanity. And so most of that prayer has to do with not participating in evil eye and evil tongue, and there's different things, but you guys can go watch that short from today and get more detail about that. But there are ways that we can learn the discipline of regulating our thoughts that inform our emotions, and regulating our moods, and regulating our emotions. And so, and then, a lot of it too, or at least a significant portion of it, is learning how to regulate our nervous system. So we do these things, and they don't always feel like they work immediately, but we have to keep showing up, because the presence of God, the presence of the Holy Spirit, can't be where there's no affinity. And so it needs us in that state of joy. In Job, it says there will be a lifting up by the cleanness of your hands. In Job 22, it talks about like being separated under a cloud, or I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I remember the impression always stuck with me because I feel a lot of affinity with Job. I feel that I have had a life that has had a lot of what seems like just chaos. And this is mostly years ago. This isn't so much anymore. But growing up in my family, there was so much turmoil and tumult and chaos and struggle. And I was never that person that walked away from my faith and was angry at God. I always believed in God. And so the fact that Job was put through all these plagues and almost curses in proof that he would be faithful to God, always kind of stuck with me. And so there was this one day I was having a bad day and I just was led to open my Bible. I heard Job 22. Go look up Job 22. Well, hold on. We'll read it. See if I can find this in this big giant. I don't. Sorry for burning daylight. Okay, where is Job? Is Job before the Psalms? Okay, here we go. Job. Okay, so Job 22. And be at peace. Okay, so I intimately know him, and be at peace. Good shall come to you by them. Now receive the law from his mouth and put his words in your heart. This is like such a different translation from the one, but basically, like, it's hard to read right now on camera and make the point. But the point is that there was a passage that talked about you will be lifted up by the cleanness of your hands. And it talked about how you have to lift your thoughts and lift your beliefs and lift your consciousness above the evil influence and your lower nature, that influence. And so it's like you've got to get your consciousness in the right place in order to reconnect and be connected with God. Otherwise, like, God can't reach down in your like state of despair because there's no vibrational affinity. The same concept is true in the Pistis Sophia, where Sophia falls into the clutches of darkness, Sophia being the goddess wisdom, and Jesus is actually the Christ is trying to go get Sophia, but Sophia is so far down that she has to find some way to elevate and ascend before she can be saved and redeemed and brought out of this darkness and despair. So there is this responsibility on us to maintain and cultivate a higher state of consciousness and to maintain and cultivate that state of joy. In the Hebrew Kabbalah teachings, the presence of God, the feminine aspect, is called the Shina. And this is when you feel the force of the Creator in your life, providing and protecting you, and that force of blessing and that feeling of being held and surrounded in that love and protection. That spirit cannot be in a state of darkness and despair and tumult. And so we have to choose to be joyous, and this is like repeated over and over and over again through the scriptures, this almost like this commandment for us to be in a state of joy. So this practicality card, I want to read it to you because it talks about the emotional state. So above, a rustic scene represents order and practicality with the ruler and servants, tillers of the soil and millers of the wheat. below, the patterns allude to the worker bees and the moon lotus flowers that bring forth honey. So the person, so the moon Capricorn character can be a little cautious and restrained in expressing true emotions. They always seek practical and material answers to emotional problems. Rarely will this person show what he or she feels to be weak expressions of feelings in any situation. People with this planet sign combination care how others see them and tend to hold feelings in order to maintain an image of outward calm. The position of the moon in this sign also indicates an oversensitive reaction to imagined or real slights from others. I mean, how true is that right now? It's like all of these things going on in the world. It's like what's the proper reaction to any of it, right? It's like, this isn't imagined, it's all very real, but how do we react in a way that is productive and responsible? So this position of the moon in this sign also indicates an oversensitive reaction to imagined or real slights from others. The moon Capricornian's position in society contributes to his or her emotional well-being. And people with this planet sign aspect usually have an emotional need for prominence and recognition and may have a family history of achievement to live up to. So it's like this person, it's like so being burdened all the time with what everybody else expects and thinks of you is also draining your energy. It's not going to ever pay you off. It's not going to give you fulfillment. It's not going to get you where you need to go. And if you are in a state of prominence, you're going to be up against criticism. If you make your voice known in the world, people are going to have something to say about it. I was just thinking this today, sometimes it doesn't even feel worth it commenting on anything because of how irritating people are in the comments. I was just weighing in on the Nestle boycott and I just was like, an easy way to avoid major brands is I shop at Aldi and it seems to be a good company to work for. And they have a lot of diversity. They have a lot of women that work there. The groceries are very affordable. They have sustainable practices and things. And no company is going to be perfect, but we have to weigh out the lesser of the evils, right? And I mean, the irritating people just splitting hairs about every little thing in this comment section. I'm just I don't care anymore. Do what you want, but I can't afford to go to boutique grocery stores like Sprouts. I already have the bare essentials. And I'm not gonna fight the idea of someone oppressing me by then oppressing myself into spending the entire day off rolling around to every single market and store trying to piece together what I need for the week. I'm doing my best. I'm avoiding Amazon. I am avoiding, I'm not going to Target. I am avoiding any of these. I don't even use any of these Nestle products, but just trying to chime in and say something helpful. It's everyone is complaining. Everyone's bitching and moaning. And it's just figure it out for y'all's own damn self. Honestly, I don't care if you're rotten misery. I'm over it. Okay. This is Aries season. You're lucky I'm not setting everything ablaze. The moon Capricornian's position in society contributes to his or her emotional well-being, and people with this planet sign aspect usually have an emotional need for prominence and recognition and may have a family history of achievement to live up to. Whatever degree of achievement this is, the moon Capricornians have a strong family link with the mother, in particular representing a profound influence. So your mother might have a big influence on you right now. Now, this is also true that my mother and my father have always condemned what I'm doing, and they don't understand what I'm doing. And they always say things like, you're never going to be blessed as long as you have these cards and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, am I at a point where this is haunting me all the time? Or is this the normal, like struggle that you go up against when you have a calling and the opponent is trying to hold you back from like achieving your calling? Or like, are these people right? Like, I don't like to let people's influence get into my head. And so I tend to just shut it out and double down on what I'm doing. But I also don't want to be stubborn and unmovable and, unteachable, right? So, I'm kind of where I'm at with this. It's like, are you trying to please your parents? Because you're never going to, and they don't have to live your life either, right? Are you bending over backwards for everyone else who they sleep fine at night, and you're trying to people please your way to the point where you're abandoning yourself? We all have to ask ourselves this, and I'm in this boat too with you guys, right alongside. Drawing this card suggests that the person to whom it refers will be brought prominently before the public eye. Okay, well, anytime now. It indicates ability in the political or community field, if this is not already a part of life. It could become important. This card suggests exceptional organizational abilities that need a vehicle to bring about success. So a vessel for your talents. Often the practicality card indicates the assistance of a prominent or successful woman in advancing the career of the person asking the question. Do I have any mentors out there that want to help me out? Am I the prominent woman helping you? I don't feel very prominent. Okay, so events and social work. So practical assistance, recognition for patient and unassuming work, achievement through diligence. So, reevaluating our approach or our direction, being open to, help or refining our skills. I did buy a very affordable course on how to create viral content. So I've taken some of these things before. I've implemented. We'll see. I haven't had time this weekend to really get into it, but as soon as I can, I want to go through the modules and see if anything helps. So restlessness. Here we have this feeling of angstiness, of anxiousness for something, for a breakthrough, for a break, for just a sign, a glimmer of hope, right? Now, our energy right now may be spreading our attention in different directions. You see this we're with the Two of Pentacles here. So part of Two of Pentacles is like you've got to keep a sense of play and joy as you're balancing a lot of responsibilities and priorities. But some of this might be that we're all of our energy is being diffused because we're going in too many directions. We're juggling too many things. We have too many balls up in the air. So maybe we need to trim the fat and focus even more narrow down our focus to a couple of things that we're working on. It's really hard to be excellent at more than a handful of things at once. So let's read the Restless card. The classical figure of Mercury dashes across an urban landscape. In the sky, the sun is a compass indicating the ultimate in creative possibilities and the multitude of direction in which Mercury can travel. So it's like we have these talents, we can go in many different directions, but it's like, how do we use them? How do we use them in the most effective way that's in alignment with our destiny and our purpose and our calling? And then other than that, like we need to focus in, right? One of my Kabbalah teachers, David, is a businessman, and him and his ex-wife co-founded Mary Ruth Organics. And so this company has been, it was built on, beans. They had nothing. They were only able to produce like a couple of bottles at a time. And they somehow convinced the factory to do it. The people that actually produce the thing and put it in a bottle. They were able to negotiate that, but now it's like $1 billion company or multi-millions. Like it's wildly successful. But and all these people are like, you know, trying to tell him like, oh, you need to invest in crypto, you need to do this, you need to do that. And he was like, that might be true for you, but I need to reinvest into my business. I need to focus into my business because I don't want to diffuse my energy in all these different directions. I want to make my energy the most potent, right? So Mercury Arians are decisive and active thinkers, fond of debate and argument. Mentally, they tend to be competitive and impulsive, making decisions quickly and a little one-sidedly. With Mercury in this position, there is always a danger that one might have too many irons in the fire and thus waste a great deal of mental and physical energy. This card describes someone who is probably quite articulate and bases most actions on good thinking and logic. With a higher than average intelligence, people with this planet sign combination have the ability to express themselves verbally, which will be important to them in any kind of achievement. However, natural curiosity and the ability to grasp quickly the essence of things leads to a restless existence and a need to constantly be on the move. So it's like people who have shiny object syndrome. They you know, get bored with what they're doing and they want to do something else, or they lose interest, or they keep having all these great ideas. They keep chasing these ideas around, but they're not sticking with them and following through. Or even if they do, they spread their energy out too much away from the most important things. So tiring quickly of project after project, people with Mercury and Aries are on the eternal search for new stimulation. Negatively, because of the sheer overactivity of the mind, the Mercury Arian is prone to irritability and temper. It's always been something I've struggled with. And has a need always to have the last word in an argument. When this card is drawn, it indicates a great need for the questioner to scribble down thoughts and ideas on paper. This could set the inquirer on the road to becoming a writer of some kind. The restlessness card can sometimes suggest a long drawn out dispute with much correspondence. This feels like the Aldi conversation it's like been going on for days. Like, I'm so sick of getting the notifications. I'm like, can I pull out of this whole thing? Meanwhile, the comment that I made a couple of weeks ago that strikes such controversy, like, there are no people arguing anymore. It is just like now over 600 people have agreed like with what I said. It's like amazing. Amazing might be the wrong word, but it's just like, okay, with this card drawn, it indicates a great need for the questioner to scribble down thoughts. Okay, oh yeah, and dispute and correspondence. Okay, events, research, or detective work. Competitive written work or discussion. Taking up creative writing, a big argument, or spontaneous communication. Contact with the media. Okay, so let's read, because we've already talked about the King of Cups qualities, and that's here with submission. Oh, in addition to what the submission card is going to tell us, all week long, I've been getting messages about sitting in meditation and tapping into that sacred secretion, opening the pineal gland. You have the king sitting here, almost looking like he's in meditation with his eyes closed, sitting in stillness. Submission. So the feminine energy is that of receiving, right? There are other qualities of the feminine, divine feminine, and the supernal feminine are stillness, quiet, restriction. Closing your eyes is a practice of restriction, right? And so in order to really receive wisdom, guidance, to receive the spaciousness within and that endless connection, we have to discipline ourselves to sit in quiet stillness. And sometimes that can be so difficult. For me, I've actually wanted to sit in meditation this week, but I'm like pulled in a million different directions. And it seems like by the time I get to the end of my day, after this video, I'm starving. So I need to like put my clean sheets on the bed, like fold the laundry that I've got going, and like get some food in me because I fast every day. And so I usually don't get to eat until and I also just can't afford to eat a lot of times a day. So I eat at night, and that usually ends up being late at night. So by the time I am finished with all that, it's the end of the day, and like to sit in meditation, I'm like, I just kind of want to like veg out. And so I do practice prayer before I go to sleep, but then I will try to maybe even do a meditation as I fall asleep, but then I fall asleep. So I am with you guys. I am telling myself this. I need to sit in meditation. I wanted to sit in meditation at the park today, but I just got there too late. The sun was, getting ready to go down. It was getting cold. And so I came home and I had to start the video. So you see where I struggle with this, like feeling like, is this worth what I'm doing? Because I'm neglecting all the things that I could just be doing for myself in my own life. To do this, to be here. And I'm like, is anybody even watching? Like, is anybody hearing me? So any feedback you guys give me is always appreciated. Any comment that indicates that you've been watching is always appreciated. Like, I appreciate you being here and your participation. Okay. So, and believe me, I want to make shorter videos, but the messages, they come through the way they come through, and I don't want to cut off the information, because a lot of times I'll hurry and try to finish up, and then I'm like, oh, I realized I should have said this thing and I didn't. Okay, so a bird in a beautiful cage this is Venus in Pisces. A bird in a beautiful cage is placed in a decoratively draped window. Outside in the sky, appearing as the sun, is the glyph of Venus. The door of the cage is open, but the bird remains inside. Venus Pisces types are highly sensitive and imaginatively romantic. They can invent their own reality with regards to friends and loved ones. People with this planet sign combination need physical demonstrations of love in regular doses and are therefore susceptible to being fooled by insincerity. Some kind of artistic talent is usually indicated by this planet sign aspect. It will blossom in a sensitive and appreciative environment. The higher dimension of the sign Pisces can manifest as a great talent for inspired artistic, poetic, or musical works. With this gift, such people are able to tap into the universal unconsciousness, achieving great public success and expressing the spirit of their time. Highly sensitive and imaginative romantic, they can idealize their loved ones. It would not be surprising if they had a fantasy or secret love or lover at some point in their life. The Venus Piscean's underlying kindness towards and sympathy with others constantly demands someone or something on which to be lavished. However, people with this personality type are extremely vulnerable to emotional bullies, so need to be extra selective with their compassion. So basically, people can be, these people are sensitive to other people's feelings, and so other people can bulldoze them and manipulate them into getting what they want if they play on their emotions just right. And it's talking about how these people can be lured in to people who want to realize a sexual fantasy with them or a romantic fantasy, who are just objectifying them and pretend to be what they want and trick them into thinking that they're sincere when they're not. And so these people are kind of vulnerable to that too. And I've been in both of those scenarios. Let's see. Okay. That's why I feel like when evangelicals are driven by fear and they try to emotionally bully me into quitting this that I do, I understand where they're coming from, because I don't even really watch a lot of other people's readings. I'm very particular about who I give my attention to in that regard. And so I don't want people to see this and just think that I am like fully endorsing like all tarot all the time. So I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, like I feel, and the people that have been here for a long time understand and know what we're doing and find that this has helped the growth of their spirit and soul in the way that we approach this work. So I don't want to be emotionally bulldozed out of doing this. Like, I don't know. I'm no different from y'all. Like, I struggle, in my own life with discerning, okay, do I keep going? Like, is this the sign that I give up? Is this when I'm supposed to triumph over, like, all against all odds? Like, it's a process for all of us. We're all learning together. However, people with this personality type are extremely vulnerable to emotional bullies, so need to be extra selective with their compassion. Often when this card is drawn, it indicates a social shyness that leads to isolation and romantic frustration. This in turn may cause feelings of martyrdom and become sublimated into religious or spiritual expression. So yes, sometimes we can all fall into that victim mentality, that martyrdom. And Elizabeth, the writer, she did Big Magic. She's Rob Bell's best friend, Elizabeth Gilbert. I just saw a video that she did earlier. I saw it on TikTok where she's doing this talk about people like giving themselves to the degree that they overgive and they are exhausted, and then they feel like a martyr because females listen to spiritual lessons that are kind of intended for males. And so when for males to be more spiritual, they need to share more. That's their purpose. That's their energy. They're giving, right? When you look at the genitals, the penis is directed outward. That is pointed in the direction that the man needs to give his energy. He needs to give of himself to others. He needs to give of himself and empty himself, his selfishness, to share, to serve, to give. Whereas females have taken that on and they've doubled down into that thinking and that consciousness to their detriment. And it's so funny because there was like 3 different people in a row that I saw that this theme came up in my TikTok feed. And I'm like, wow, this is definitely something I need to hear. Because females tend to give and nurture limitlessly. They'll give themselves like a horse, work themselves to death. And what ends up happening is that they don't self-empty from an egotistical point of view. They just abandon themselves completely for everyone else, and they lose themselves in the process. So the vagina is directed inward to receive. And so it is more that the female has to overcome her nature to actually restrict and receive and put boundaries around herself, and protect her sense of self and establish a stronger sense of self. It's true even in, like, say, the rituals in Rosh Hashanah. There are things, mitzvot, that the men are expected to do that the women aren't supposed to participate or don't have to, because it's the men that need to do more work. Spiritually, and this is a Jewish belief and an understanding that women are already given a more highly evolved spiritual nature than males are. And so we aren't necessarily, the same prescription doesn't apply to both of us equally. And so over-giving and oversharing to our detriment puts us in a state of martyrdom and bitterness. And then we're like, why isn't it working? Why is everything falling apart? And it's because have now shifted into a survival consciousness of lack and of being starved and being empty and completely detached from ourself, from the essence of ourself. The essence of our magic and our fullness is what brings the blessing into a household, into a family. We are the channels of spiritual energy, and we're the channels of blessing. And so in the Jewish belief, it is that the more you bless your wife and the more generous you are with them, the more you will be blessed as a man in your efforts, in your career, and in the things that you put your hands to in the world. So often when this card is drawn, it indicates a social shyness that leads to isolation and romantic frustration. This in turn may cause feelings of martyrdom and become sublimated into religious and spiritual expression. For some people, though, it can represent a genuine love of solitude and quiet. Events: feeling caught in a love trap, giving in for a quiet life. Like, this is so my mood today. I'm just like, I just want to quit and be a hermit and have a quiet life and go escape to a wonderful little place somewhere where I can have a secret garden and a practical magic house on a coast. Staying in an awkward situation, easily left. So staying in something that's awkward and an ill fit, but you could easily walk away from it. All right, you guys, I hope that this helps you gain clarity. If nothing else, I hope that you feel seen and felt and understood. You know, sometimes it's cathartic to feel that someone feels your pain and is sharing your pain and is sharing your struggle. And we're not reinforcing this, like we're not doubling down in like this victim conversation. We're trying to find a way out of this. We're trying to shift our consciousness and reach higher and avoid the pitfalls of slipping into that martyrdom or that victim consciousness or that lack consciousness. Because there are some days where you feel like you're not enough. You don't feel like you can do enough. You don't feel like there's enough of you to go around, right? And that's not true. But we definitely feel that way sometimes. So those are the days that, you know, we need to do what we can to purge ourselves of those feelings and draw from our inner strength and pick ourselves back up. And so I definitely feel better after having talked about all this. I hope that you feel seen and you feel better, and that, you know, we all feel stronger going forward. And I hope we have a great day tomorrow. So I will see y'all tomorrow night for Secret Teachings of Jesus. I think I might do a part 2 of last week. So if you haven't watched last week's Secret Teachings of Jesus, or you did and you felt like there was more to talk about, I feel like there's more to talk about too. So we're going to do part 2 of last week's lesson, and that will be that. And I'll see you tomorrow. Shalom.